What if the race to clean energy wasn't just about saving the planet, but about shaping the geopolitical architecture of tomorrow? Over a decade ago, US leaders warned of a new Sputnik moment. This time, the threat wasn't rockets. It was China's meteoric rise in clean energy technology. Fast forward to today, and those warnings have become reality. Chinese companies now produce most of the world's solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicle batteries, outpacing the US at nearly every turn. But you might be surprised to learn this isn't just bad news for the US economy. It could reshape geopolitics in new and unseen ways.
China produces the majority of key clean energy technologies. Why is that a bad thing? Should we not be glad that China is deploying technologies that might get the world closer to reaching net zero goals?
Well, I think that's an important framing. In the context for this global challenge of wrangling our carbon emissions, we've seen pretty revolutionary cost reductions in a lot of these technologies, 90% reduction in the cost of solar photovoltaic, which of course a lot of which has to do with China's economies of scale. And as you mentioned, it's not just these legacy technologies, wind turbines, solar panels, batteries, but also next generation ones, the ability to produce green hydrogen, to decarb our industries, the ability to produce nuclear power, which the United States has effectively stopped doing for the past couple decades. There's been one reactor in Georgia recently. So in terms of wrangling our carbon emissions, this is positive news. There's some analysis out there that suggests China may even plateau their domestic emissions ahead of schedule. This also means for emerging and developing countries access to cheap, clean energy products that are a part of their development strategy. So that all said, it is positive. But for the United States, the world's largest oil and gas producer, the world's largest net carbon emitter and historical carbon emitter, this poses a challenge, especially as these technologies become increasingly cost competitive to incumbent fossil fuel products, which we dominate today.
Clean energy systems are the new battleground for industrial and technological dominance. So where does that leave the United States?
We've seen unprecedented levels of industrial policy, both the Inflation Reduction Act, which you mentioned, but also the bipartisan infrastructure law. And those policies took an all-encompassing approach to throw grants, loans, tax credits at onshoring the production of these energy systems and some low-carbon industrial processes. I think in general, there is an argument to be made that you need to start with an industrial base. Some of these sectors are really starting from scratch. But what I argue in my report and what I offer to policymakers, not just in the US, but in other countries, is that this all-of-the-above approach to onshoring, especially incumbent technologies that the Chinese already produce at scale, may not be a winning strategy to produce long-term, competitive, and durable industries for low-carbon growth. And that's really the goal here. We don't want to have subsidy-reliant industries that are dependent on tariff walls. We want to have innovation that can drive forward domestic industries and can also accelerate the efficiencies of low-carbon technologies.
What are the kinds of innovation that can help America catch up or even leap ahead in the clean energy race? Milo McBride argues that batteries can play a key role.
Batteries are essential technologies of the 21st century. They will define how we move around in the world. They are key demand drivers for critical minerals. And they have dual and triple use opportunities for nations that have advanced battery technology. I highlight batteries as an opportunity to leapfrog ahead. One, because some of the technologies that are being incubated in the US do not require the vast and comprehensive mineral supply chains that are dominated by China. And over the past couple of years, the Biden administration has tried to put forth both domestic and foreign policies to abate some of those supply chain risks. And I will say cautiously, too little avail. Most of these supply chains, the chemical processing, the extraction, are largely still dominated by Chinese firms. So the alternative strategy I suggest is that the U.S. really consider the high opportunity in technologies that not only offer these generous driving ranges that I expressed previously, but that also can phase out the need for some of the chemicals that pose mineral choke points. And I think the particular one here is graphite. And this is timely. It comes after last week's announcement from the Chinese Ministry of Commerce that there will be more stringent export restrictions on graphite products from China to the U.S. And it's an area where there are few alternative supply chains being developed, right? There's one in Mozambique, there's one in Quebec. But fundamentally, what I offer is that the U.S. should look towards replacing graphite with lithium. This is known as a lithium metal architecture. And the U.S. has no issue producing lithium. We have enormous supplies of this stuff in Arkansas, in California, and it can be extracted much like oil through a process known as direct lithium extraction. It's not invasive like hard rock mining. So there's no supply chain risks in the lithium sector, and we should see a type of synergy between that more sustainable and geopolitically sustainable way of extracting lithium and batteries that just demand more lithium over graphite. The last thing I'll say is that the U.S. has a unique type of technology that I highlight in my paper called lithium sulfur. It is a type of battery that just requires lithium. It also needs sulfur, which is an industrial waste product, essentially costs nothing to procure. But if you think about that type of chemistry from a geopolitical lens, if you can advance that system, which is doing quite well, there's been some interesting developments in the past week, then we not only simplify the domestic supply chain, but if that battery can be commercialized, you negate the importance of Beijing's most important mineral choke points. And I think that's an interesting way to think about a type of asymmetric economic approach to the battery mineral issue. Instead of sending Western mining giants out to extract niche and illiquid minerals, which are, quite frankly, not going to be very economically enticing, maybe you think about alternative demand drivers that just negate the importance of some of these leverage points altogether.
Read Milo McBride's full article to learn more about how energy innovation can secure U.S. industrial stature in a net zero world.